Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a perennial favorite. This is the Rolex 116610V Hulk. Now, you can purchase the Hulk on our website, watchyouwant.com, and if you like these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now, 40 millimeters with the modern super case. 2010 to present, the Hulk replaced the original 16610LV Anniversary Submariner that ran from 2003 to 2009. You can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. The watch wears with the broad stance of the modern so-called super case. And you can see from overhead, it really has more of the surface area of something bigger, bolder, fuller of body. Something like a Royal Oak Offshore 42 even. From overhead, in terms of wrist real estate, is probably a good comparison. Now, you do have all the modern Rolex standards here. All solid links, solid end links, and a fully milled out clasp. So on the wrist, from an ergonomic standpoint, the watch wears with a lot more mass than previous 40mm Rolex watches. So although it does look bigger, it probably even feels a bit larger than it looks. Proportionally, it's gotten a little bit bigger visually, but it's gotten a lot more substantial from a mass standpoint. But everything that touches the skin is of the highest quality, and because the Rolex Oyster case is still pretty chunky and cobby, that is, fairly wide in relation to its height, it spreads its mass well, and it's not overly thick, as you can see from the profile, just over 13 millimeters thick, so it's a nice compact profile. With the exception of the jutting, somewhat cantilevered bezel, it's actually a decent option with a dress cuff, and you can see once again on my wrist that profile shot demonstrates just how hunkered and low this watch sits. Now, all elements that touch the skin are excellent. The bracelet, the latest Oyster, is outstanding. Curved and cupped on the back, you can see just how much material is pared out from behind the lugs and the intermediate links to avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. Very comfortable, very flexible. The finish is a real highlight here. Polished entirely on its flanks, and as you can see, brushed on its hoods. There's just enough contrast to maintain visual interest and avoid visual monotony, but not so much that it turns into a jewelry watch. The highlight of every Hulk, surprisingly, is the all-green ceramic Serichrome bezel and the green-gold dial. Now, before I jump into that green-gold controversy, let me talk a little bit about the ceramic. This was one of Rolex's first forays, along with the blue bezel, into colored ceramic. They've been a lot more conservative in their approach to this material than other manufacturers, while others have jumped straight into orange and white and even some candy colors. Rolex focuses on longevity and uniformity of color, so quality was of the utmost importance here. Getting the color to be true, getting it to have an even luster, and of course, finding a way to fill it reliably and durably. Those were Rolex's focal points for the design of this bezel. Now, everything you see that is an index or a numeral or a demarcation on this bezel, with the exception of the sapphire-covered luminescent pearl at 12, everything is actually a well that is filled with platinum for optimal visual impact. Now, all of these filled wells have depth to them. They have a special luster to them that's distinct from the gloss of the bezel itself. So what you're looking at is a combination of contrast between the height of the bezel and the depth of the well, as well as the color of the bezel and the luster of the metal. Quite dramatic, quite impressive in person. Now, the dial, this is what we know as the Maxi Dial, a long-time standard in the Yachtmaster series. It didn't come to the Submariners until that original 2003 anniversary 16610LV. Bigger plots, more lume, larger white gold indices and hands. It's more visible. It elevates the stature of the dial to keep a pace with the growth in the proportions and prominence of the case. So everything in proportion, likewise the amount of color. And it's a completely different green, although it matches the bezel in the sense that it's a nicely consonant big green circle. It's more of a lustrous, metallic soleil pattern at center. Gorgeous to look at. It has a life to it in the light, so that because of the metallic texture of the dial and the gold elements that are actually mixed into the green overlay, it has an incredible shine in the light. It's really an outdoor watch. It's muted, it's discreet inside with just enough color to entertain, but when you take it outdoors, in combination with those polished white gold indices and hands, it really pops. A very impressive piece. This watch is all about a standard of quality that is unarguable, unimpeachable. All of the features of the conventional sub easily at hand, manifestly apparent, everything from the micro adjust of the clasp up to 20 millimeters and 2 millimeter increments built in, as you can see here, to the solidity of the fully milled out deployant, to the comfort of the bracelet, and of course the legibility of the dial. The enhancement is the elements of green that make the Hulk a standout. Now, I talked about controversy with respect to the dial. It's been described by Rolex as green gold, and I want to break that down a little bit because it's caused a great deal of confusion. It has golden elements mixed into the powdered alloy that's used to plate the dial. It's not an 18 karat standard. Rolex hasn't invented a new type of gold. What they've done is they've worked in precious metal elements to ensure the stability of the color and also the luster of the color. So there is some true gold in there, and of course all the applied elements in the hands are white gold. But it's not as if you can simply pop the dial out and have a solid quarter-sized chunk of gold in your hand. It's done purely for visual effect. And inside, Rolex's 3135 workhorse movement, but with all the modern standards. The Parachrom Bleu handmade overcoil brigade hairspring, highly anti-magnetic, thermally resistant. Of course, because it is an overcoil, just about any position you put the watch on your dresser at night, it's going to resist accelerating or slowing down. Very good isochronism, a COSC rated chronometer. It is very precise, and Rolex uniquely takes the COSC certificate after the bare movement is tested, cases the watch, and then essentially retests it to make sure that it's still COSC after the stress, after the handling of casing up the movement. That is not universal in the watch industry, and it ensures that the watch's chronometer certification really is worth something to the end user. It's not just a theoretical accolade. The case is water resistant to 300 meters, so 1,000 feet, very robust Oyster triplock crown, so you've got plenty of water resistance, which I understand is excessive for the everyday user, but the margin of excess that you have with a dive watch, that is how water resistant your watch is when it leaves the factory, is like a margin of safety, because the watch that's so-called splash resistant, that's 5 or 3 ATM water resistant, that's the watch that's going to be compromised down the line as the natural aging of the seals, of the lubricants that lubricate the seals takes hold. A dive watch is going to give you the most durability in between servicings, gasket replacements, and gasket lubrication. So I like to start with more. Start with the surplus. This way you know you'll always have enough. 50-hour power reserve, automatic winding as ever. The Rolex Submariner remains a standard in the dive watch class. The Hulk, however, remains a standout among Submariners. You can see this standout, and if you please, you can take home the Hulk on our website, watchyouwant.com.